Now these ones are for the measures of variability. These ones, how spread is the data set? Okay, how spread is the data set from the center? We usually have three things we measure with this: the range, the variance, and then a standard deviation. So the range is basically the difference between the highest and the lowest value. So you just subtract. Okay, subtract the minimum value from the maximum value. Okay, it is very quick. You can always tabulate that. It's very quick, but also it is sensitive to outliers, like we explained with the mean, and does not actually have considerations for the distribution within the range. So it just gives us the value, nothing much there. So that is the range. The next one is the variance. So the variance is the average of the squared deviations from the mean. Okay, this is to mean that you can have the 10 students with the different scores, and then you calculate the average scores. Okay, the average score for that particular exam. So for each score, if a student got 50%, so you have 50% minus the average squared. Okay, and then you move the next one like that, and then you divide by the number of students in that class or who sat for that paper. Okay, so it is a very good measure of dispersion. The units are not easily interpreted as they are usually squared, but they also actually help us in getting the standard deviation. So the standard deviation is basically the square root of the variance. Okay, so it means that you need to first calculate the variance, which we have looked at. Get the variance, and then square it. Have the square root of the variance, and then you will get the standard deviation. Okay, standard deviation basically means that what is the average distance of each data point from the mean. Okay, that is standard deviation. I think so. Let's look at the example that we have for measures of dispersion. Okay, still we are using hypothetical data on systolic blood pressure. So we have taken those measurements. We have 125, 128, 130, 130, 132, 135, 136, 140, 142, and then 145. Okay. So we want to see how this data is actually spread. It is what we mean by measures of dispersion. How are they spread? So the first measure is the range, the maximum minus the minimum. So the maximum here is what? What is the maximum figure there?
It's 148.
148? Do we have 140?
145, I mean.
This is 145, yes. And then the minimum is?
The minimum is 125.
Yes, 125. So the range becomes 20 millimeters of mercury.
20.
Variance. So now let's move to variance. Remember, variance is the average of the sum. Okay. Let us just say this. The steps of calculating variance are basically three. Okay. You first calculate the mean. Calculate the mean, which is basically the sum divided by the number of the values, which we have looked at. That is step one. Step number two, for each value, okay, which we usually call for each data point, subtract it, From it, you subtract the mean and then square it. Okay, and then square it. Okay, so for each figure, so starting, for example, for 120, let us start assuming we have calculated the mean, which is 131.3 millimeters of mercury. So we are going to, for each point here, we are subtracting the mean and then square it. For each point, subtract the mean and square it. For each point, subtract the mean and square it. Each point, subtract the mean and square it. After that, now you add all of them. Okay? Add all of them. After adding all of them, that is the sum of the squared difference divided by the number of values, which basically here, the number of values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
There are 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you get the sum of the squared differences divided by the number of values. Okay. When you get that figure, that is what we call variance. Okay. Now, after getting that figure, for you to calculate standard deviation, you have to get the square root of the figure that you have got. Okay. So the interpretation, the importance of this standard deviation, and even the variance will make more sense tomorrow if we look at inferential statistics. But for now, we have looked at the fact that when we have one category of statistics that we call descriptive statistics, which helps us to summarize and even interpret data. So it gives us an idea of what kind of data set we have. So we can use measures of central tendency, which include the median, the mode, and then the mean. But we can also use the measures of dispersion, which include the range, variance, and then standard deviation. And we have looked at how to calculate each of those. So if